We are living in a moment unlike any other, a time where the veil between what was foretold and what is now unfolding is being torn away before our very eyes. The prophecies that once echoed from the scrolls of ancient times, whispered by prophets in deserts and exile, are not distant memories. They are headlines. They are sirens. They are knocking at our very door. Nations rise and nations fall. Powers shift, alliances crumble, the ground beneath the feet of empires trembles. But what if the shaking is not random? What if it was declared long ago? In the word, in the scrolls, in the trumpet calls of watchmen standing on the walls? The world today is racing, rushing towards something. Can you not feel it? The acceleration of time, the collapse of morals, the confusion of identity, the rebellion of nations against the God who formed them. It is not just news. It is not just politics. It is not just economy. It is prophetic. The days of Noah were filled with violence, confusion, and lawlessness. So too now. The days of Lot were stained by pride and perversion. So too now. What once brought judgment has returned. And what once was judged will again be judged if the trumpet does not sound and the people do not turn. Look to Israel, the timepiece of prophecy. Look to the Middle East, the furnace of fulfillment. Look to the nations aligning, for even their conspiracies are being woven into the tapestry of destiny. What was written is what will be. What is hidden is now being revealed, and what seems like chaos is actually convergence. The convergence of prophecy with history, of warnings with reality. But this is not a time to tremble. It is a time to rise. It is not a time to run in fear. It is a time to return in faith. For even in the midst of judgment, there is mercy. Even in the shaking, there is a call. The trumpet is sounding, not to destroy, but to awaken a sleeping church, a slumbering nation, and a lost generation. Everything you are seeing now, the wars, the rumors of wars, the earthquakes, the plague of confusion, the falling away, it is not the end. It is the beginning of the end. The warnings are mercy. The signs are invitations. The judgments are calls to repentance. The darkness is only allowed so the light can shine even brighter. And the question now is not what will happen next, but what you will do in the face of it. Will you be silent when the world needs truth? Will you be passive when heaven is calling you to war? Will you remain in Babylon when Zion is your destiny? You were born for such a time as this. You were appointed not to survive the end, but to shine in it, to speak in it, to stand in it, to lead in it, to intercede in it. You are not a spectator. You are a watchman. You are a voice. You are a light on the wall. So blow the trumpet. Lift the standard. Break the silence. Proclaim the warning. Speak the truth. And prepare the way. For the King is coming. Prophecy is not distant. It's manifesting in real time through global events and spiritual decline. What was once confined to ancient scrolls, spoken in cryptic tones by prophets in the wilderness, is now screaming from the headlines. The wars, the famines, the pestilences, the moral collapse, these are not disconnected events or cycles of history repeating themselves randomly. They are converging signs of a prophetic timeline set in motion long before any nation existed. The world today is experiencing a spiritual unraveling, where truth has become relative, where good is called evil, and evil is celebrated as good. This moral confusion is not simply a cultural shift. It is the fulfillment of ancient words that warned of a time when people would turn their ears away from truth and follow myths, when lawlessness would increase and the love of many would grow cold. This is that time. We see the rise of lawlessness not only in the streets of cities, but in the hearts of people, in institutions, in governments. Prophecy warned us of a global shaking, a shaking of economies, of systems, of nations. That shaking is here. It warned us of alliances forming against Israel, of increasing persecution against those who hold to biblical truth, of a great apostasy, of falling away from faith. These things are no longer predictions. They are the reality of our world. What we see in the Middle East, what we see in the polarization of society, what we see in the plagues and unrest are not just coincidental events, but pieces of a larger puzzle that was laid out long before us. The prophets were not merely giving poetic expressions. They were unveiling divine intelligence, encrypted messages from the eternal into the hands of mankind to prepare them for a time such as this. Every moment you wake up and see the disorder of the world, you are witnessing the breath of prophecy being fulfilled. Every courtroom that strikes down righteousness, every classroom that teaches rebellion, every government that legislates immorality is echoing what the scriptures foretold. These things were not only going to happen, they had to happen. But prophecy is not only about doom, it is about revelation, the revealing of God's purposes, the unveiling of his sovereign hand even in the midst of darkness. What looks like collapse is also a setup for awakening. What appears to be judgment is also a call to return. The real-time manifestation of prophecy is not something meant to entertain or spark curiosity. It is meant to wake up a generation, to bring urgency, to spark revival. We are not watching prophecy unfold from the sidelines. We are living inside it. We are the generation that reads the words of Daniel and then scrolls past their headlines. We are the ones walking through the streets that the prophets foresaw would burn. And in the midst of all this, prophecy is not silent. It is loud, relentless, and roaring like a lion across the stage of history. Now, I am moving across the shaking of nations is a divine call to repentance, not a political coincidence. What appears to be chaos on the surface, wars erupting, kingdoms crumbling, economic systems faltering, and societies unraveling, is not merely the outworking of human failure, but the sovereign hand of the Almighty allowing the foundations to tremble. From the beginning, he has used the rise and fall of empires to awaken his people, to redirect hearts, to bring nations to their knees so they may turn back to him. Every shaking is a trumpet blast, a divine alarm, a mercy warning before judgment falls. When Babylon rose, when Assyria invaded, when Jerusalem fell, it was not because God had lost control, but because his people had turned from him. So too today, the shaking of modern nations follows the same ancient pattern. When truth is cast to the ground, when righteousness is mocked, when the laws of God are replaced by the desires of man, then comes the shaking. It is a correction, not a curse. It is a wake-up call, not a random disaster. Political systems are failing because they are built on sand. Economic systems are faltering because they are fueled by greed. The social fabric is tearing because it is held together not by truth, but by deception. And yet in the midst of the collapse, the voice of God is calling, just as he called to Nineveh, just as he pleaded with Israel, just as he warned through Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Ezekiel. The same God who shook Egypt with plagues and parted seas is now shaking the earth again, not to destroy, but to turn hearts back. The global shaking is not confined to one nation or continent. It is worldwide because the rebellion has become from the halls of power to the pulpits, from the schools to the screens. The world has chosen idols over intimacy with the Creator. But the shaking will not stop until the idols fall, until the altars of self-worship are torn down, until the people who are called by his name humble themselves, pray, seek his face, and turn from their wicked ways. This is the purpose behind the shaking, to expose what is false, to strip away the illusion of control, to reveal the bankruptcy of human pride. It is mercy that God would allow the systems of man to break before the soul of man is lost. For those who hear it, the shaking is not fear, it is invitation. For those with ears to hear and eyes to see, the shaking is a preparation. It is a realignment. It is the breaking of chains, the tearing of veils, the purging of what cannot remain. The kingdoms of this world are being shaken so that the unshakable kingdom may be revealed. The shaking is not punishment for the sake of pain. It is the thunder before the storm of grace, the trembling before the rain of mercy, the roar before the return of glory. Believers are not meant to fear the end times, but to rise as watchmen and voices of truth. The days ahead were never promised to be easy, but they were always designed to be victorious for those who walk in the light. From the beginning, the people of God were never called to blend in with the darkness, but to stand against it, to be a city on a hill, a light that cannot be hidden, a trumpet that does not go silent in the night. Fear is not our inheritance, faith is. And the hour of shaking is not the moment to retreat, but the moment to advance. As the world grows darker, the call becomes clearer. In the midst of confusion, compromise, and collapse, the Spirit is calling forth a remnant. Those who will not bow to the idols of the age. Those who will not bend to the pressure of culture. Those who will not sell the truth for the approval of man. These are the ones who will speak what others fear to say, who will love with boldness, who will weep over sin and cry out for mercy. Watchmen are not silent. They see what is coming. They hear the sound of footsteps on the wind. They sense the movement of eternity breaking into time, and they warn. They intercede. They cry aloud. They are not passive spectators. They are active participants in the unfolding of God's plan. And now more than ever, the world needs those voices. Not voices of compromise, not voices of convenience, but voices of conviction. The shaking is revealing who is standing on the rock and who is building on sand. It is separating the wheat from the chaff, the genuine from the counterfeit. In this hour, neutrality is not an option. You were born into this generation for a reason. The timeline of heaven appointed you for now, not to fear the end, not to run from prophecy, but to fulfill it. To stand like Daniel in Babylon, like Esther in the palace, like Elijah on the mountain, like John crying out in the wilderness. The Lion of Judah is not coming back for a fearful church hiding in the shadows. He is coming for a bride who is awake, alert, and shining. When the world is filled with lies, truth becomes a weapon. When love grows cold, love becomes a fire. When many fall away, the faithful must rise, and they must rise not in their own strength, but clothed in righteousness, filled with the Spirit, and rooted in the unshakable Word. These are the days the prophets long to see. These are the moments heaven watches closely. And in these days, the call is not to survive, but to shine. To declare what is true, to love what is holy, to stand firm when everything around you shakes, to look up when others bow down, to run the race with eyes fixed not on what is seen, but on what is coming.